So today's session, which is a common track session as well, the theme for today's session is literature review. And in order to conduct this session, we have an esteemed guest with us who is joining us from UK right now. So I would like to formally introduce him. And I try to make sure that, I try doing justice while introducing individuals. So I'll try to make sure that I do justice this time as well. So I would like to formally welcome Shailesh Kumar, who is a Commonwealth Scholar, and he's currently pursuing his PhD in law at the School of Law, Birkbeck, that is University of London. He has taught at Delhi University and Birkbeck University of London. He has widely published in international journals and edited volumes in the areas of criminology, socio-legal studies, and constitutional law. Currently, he is working on operation of special courts dealing with cases of sexual violence against children in India. And Shailesh Kumar, he is a well-read person. I mean, he reads extensively and has a lot to say about a lot of different topics. So I'm sure this session will be an amazing session. With that, Shailesh, I formally welcome you and thank you for joining this session and for taking time out. So I will now hand over the floor to you. And with that, I'm closing my video and I will formally, hand the session to you. You can administer it the way you want.
Okay, thank you so much, Kazi. That was really helpful. And thanks for that overtly generous introduction. Hello, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. And if there is any problem, do point that out if you are unable to hear me. And I hope you all are well. So this session is about literature review. So I'll try. So how I have structured, I think this is the best thing to tell you about how we will be structuring the session so that it becomes amply clear. So the first 10 minutes, it will be a kind of monologue where the flow of information will be from my side. The next 10 minutes, I will try to gather responses from you all. And you can, of course, give your opinions on whatever I'll discuss in the first 10 minutes. The third section of the session would be, again, things which I will be discussing after gathering your responses. So that will be my response to your responses. And the final part of the session would be kind of open flow, where it will be question and answers from all of you. So to begin the first part of the session, I think it's, when we talk of literature review, it's important to understand why literature review, why do we need to review literature, what's its purpose, and from where it's coming. So I hope you all will understand that its roots lie in doing some form of research, because of course, when we think of doing some research on some topic, then we think of doing literature review. But even before researching, the very first thing that should come into mind is, why do we research? What's the purpose of researching? So this brings me to a very, this actually reminds me of a very nice quote by a very renowned political philosopher, Franz Fanon, who said that, "Oh, my body, make of me always a man who questions." So it's basically about questioning. So what you see around when you look around yourself, what you find, what you don't find. So basically, research is all about questioning. Even if you look at a larger picture, our very own existence lies on questioning. We question things so that we can improve ourselves, we can improve our community, we can improve our society, we can improve our country, right? So, and if you look at the history, there have been so many philosophers, there have been so many political scientists, sociologists, they all have somewhere questioned something, maybe say from Buddha to Aristotle, to, even if you'll talk about practicing questioning through different forms, like say even protests. So you have various people who have questioned things, questioned establishments, questioned practices. So from that, questioning something, you need to show that why you are questioning that thing. Okay. Now, there are a few things that we need to have this questioning thing. So first thing is the ability to question. Okay, so we make ourselves able enough to put questions, okay, which we can call empowering, self-empowerment, that, okay, I see a problem, and then I have gathered that much strength that, yes, I will be questioning it. If I see some wrong practices, if I see some kind of discrimination, if I see some kind of exclusion, we will question it. So the first thing is the ability to question. And then the next thing is to put up the question that, okay, I want to ask this question. I want to put up this question. And the third most important thing is the environment or the space to have the ability as well as the option to raise a question, to put up a question. So all these things together, when you combine these things, it's basically when you question something, how do you question what you have as your background support? And that is how you come to the part of research that, okay, I need to research on this thing so that I can put a question or I can put questions. And then when you get into the research thing, there, the very first thing that comes up is the literature review thing. Now, say, coming from sharing my own personal experience, my previous work, because I work on usually in the legal field and I work on courts as well. So when I looked at courts, or when I look at courts, or when you look at courts, you will see, different kinds of courts with different form of design as well, or whatever is inside the courtroom, how people are being seated, or in movies, you may have seen what is shown to you. So my purpose was, when I was doing research, I thought of looking at the importance or the significance of, say, how people sit in the courtroom. If a judge sits at a particular position, why does that judge need to sit at that position? Where the accused people are made to stand, or why they are made to stand, where the lawyers sit. So there are multiple questions that can arise by looking at these things, that, okay, why it is so. And then you begin researching. So that was the part of questioning and how we come to the stage of doing the review of literature. Now, there are certain objectives of doing that literature review, because the thing is that how we get to know about something. So there is a term which is called epistemology. You can look for this term. And the meaning of this term, just to, in general sense, is how did you, or how do you know about something? If you know about something, from where you gathered the knowledge about that particular thing. And I again get reminded of a quote which I read somewhere, is, you cannot be what you cannot see. So if you look around, say, for example, in your household, so who are in the homemaker's position. So just giving a general example. So if you see far more women than men doing the household work, then what kind of question does it raise? And the quote which I just shared with you on, how then different things like, say, the question of gender come into play there. So So that's how you kind of relate to questioning and then seeing and observing. Now, if you move ahead and if you think of the goals, the objectives of doing the review of literature, there are different things why we do the review of literature in any research. So say we have decided that, okay, we want to say, for example, just say the role of gender in household work or the role of gender in education, say primary education, secondary education, higher education. So say we have decided that, okay, this is the area I want to work on. And these are the questions that, okay, does gender has any role to play when we think of household work, when we think of education, when we think of higher education? And then you have a project, you have designed a project, or you have a thesis to write, you have a dissertation to write on it. So now the very first thing you will need to do is to review the literature which is there. Now, why do we need to review literature? The first thing is the reviewing is done to demonstrate a familiarity with a body of knowledge and to establish your credibility as an author. Now, let's break this down, okay? So the first thing is to demonstrate a familiarity with a body of knowledge that, okay, you are trying to show to your readers, whosoever will read your research work, that you have the familiarity with whatever the body of knowledge that is there, that exists in that particular area. So as I said, if it's about role of gender in household work or role of gender in education, then what is the available literature that is there? What is the existing body of knowledge which is there? So by doing a review of literature, you are demonstrating your readers that, look, I have read these things and these are the works which are already existing. And through that, you try to establish your credibility that, no, I'm not just coming, from somewhere and just have started speaking on this issue. I have gathered knowledge that, okay, these are the things, or you can say the evidence to support that this is why you are raising question and these are your questions and this is why you want to work on it, right? The second thing is to show the path of prior research and how your project is linked to it. So you try to represent that whatever research that has been done in that area, what is it? What people have said, what people have researched on. So whatever is the research that exists, so you try to showcase that path that, okay, this is the way how people have researched in this area. And then you try to situate your project. So say you have this project that, okay, role of gender in household work or education, higher education. So you situate your work that, okay, the question I'm raising through my project is lying here somewhere. The next objective is to integrate and summarize what is known in an area. Okay. So whatever is the existing body of knowledge in that area, you try to integrate all those research which is available in that area or on that topic, and you summarize it. So you put all those research available in a summarized way to the reader through your literature review. So you try to show that, okay, say X has said something about this, Y has argued this thing, Z had said this thing on this issue. And then you bring all the statements or central arguments by these three people, X, Y, Z, and you present it in your literature review that, okay, these are the arguments, these are the works that have been done in this area, and you present it in a summarized form. And of course, I will discuss later on why summarized form. So that will come later in the later part of the session. The next objective of doing a literature review is to learn from others and stimulate new ideas. So say you read the work of X, you read the work of Y and Z. When you read all these works, you found that, okay, still there is certain gap. Okay, there is certain gap. These research works still are unable to answer these kinds of questions which you have got in your mind, and because of which you have initiated a project, or because of which you have taken a project and formulated certain research questions. So you learn from them that, okay, fine, these are the people who have argued in these ways. You present their work, their central arguments, and you then try to stimulate some novel, some new ideas that, okay, I found this gap, and that's why now I will be coming up with something new, which has not been dealt with by these people. Okay, so these are kind of vaguely, you can say, the four main objectives to do a literature review. Because usually it is said that when you undertake a research work or a research project, it's basically to add on to the existing body of knowledge. Okay, so say for example, just take another area or topic. Say for example, role of race or ethnicity in job market in a particular sector, or say role of religion or language in marriages. Okay, so what you as a researcher will do is that you will collect whatever is the existing body of knowledge, whatever are the research works done in these areas. You will present it in your literature review. Now, of course, I will further again discuss later on as to what do I mean when I say that you will collect all the existing body of knowledge or all the research works. And what do I mean by all here? And is it actually possible? Because, of course, there could be so many people who may have written on these areas or on these topics, right? So these are basically the goals of doing a literature review. Now, I think let's get into the second part of the session and let's see what you have in your mind. So if you have any questions up till now, just you can go ahead and ask me. And I'd request Kaji as well to moderate it if that's possible. If anyone has any question, go ahead.
So I would really appreciate if anyone if anyone has any question, you may just flow. Just unmute your mic and kindly please do participate in the session, because Shailesh is waiting for your questions.
Yeah, any question, whatever you could understand up till now, whatever you think you need to ask to have better understanding of whatever I've said until now. Or you have any query.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
My name is Abdul Mumin. I'm from the Youth and Political Engagement team. I want to ask, how much or how do you balance your own input in your literature review? So when it comes to reviewing the works of other authors, and you have to also have your input in the literature review, how much of your personal input is expected in the literature review?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I think someone else was also trying to speak. You can also, I think we can collect questions and then you can respond
sure.
all together. Okay.
That would be better.
Hi, Shailesh sir. I am Shobha Sarkar and I'm from Bangladesh. So my question is to you that how do you give a fair value of these 6 weeks to have a perfect outcome of a research paper?
Sorry, could you repeat your question again? Sorry.
Okay. My question is to you that how do you give a fair value of 6 weeks to give a perfect outcome of a research paper?
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, you mean to say that if you have been given 6 weeks to write a paper, then how do you justify that within that 6 weeks, how good you can write a paper? Is that so?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
perfect,
sir.
perfect. Thank you.
I think
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
she's drawing from the 6 weeks limit of the program.
That's fine. Okay,
Hello,
anyone
can
else?
yeah, I have a question.
Could you raise
I
your voice a bit?
Yeah, sure. I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure, go
Can you
ahead.
hear me right now?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask about, for example, when I'm doing literature research, going through papers about the topic that we have narrowed down, I think that sometimes I found papers so
Sorry for the
long.
interruption. Can you be a bit louder?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. While doing literature research, sometimes I find that papers are so long. And for example, when I was taking my classes at the university, research methods, they said like sometimes our instructor was saying like sometimes we skip, we do a fast review about the abstract, but the most important thing is that while taking information, you never take from the introduction. You should establish your own statements in your paper from your own words. I'm just saying that my point to impress is that the paper is so long and sometimes I want to go fast through it, given the limited time, the deadlines, and the thing that I have to do, like strong literature research or strong literature review, which requires going through not just one paper.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I just want to find some tips or your advice on doing.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, anyone else has any question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so how many articles do we normally look for when we have to write a literature review?
Okay.
Yeah, first you do the literature search, right? So basically I'm asking that how many articles do I look for? Like, is there a specific count to look into?
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. My question is,
Go ahead.
should your litters, now specific objectives. So should your literature review follow the trend of your specific objectives? Please, do you understand what I said?
So you mean to say that the objectives that I just now shared, whether the literature review should follow those objectives? Is that what you mean to say?
Yes, yes. As in, if you have 3 objectives, should you conduct literature reviews that follow those 3 objectives?
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. Anyone else? Just feel free to ask anything that comes to your mind. This is a very free space and you can just speak your mind, speak your heart out. That's absolutely fine.
Speaking on the topics of like research papers, in the like mentioning in the literature review, so how do we judge the veracity of that research being conducted before, and how do we know that whether we should put it in that literature review or not? And second, so it's like sometimes we leave out the quantitative part of it. So how important it is to put in the quantitative research which has been done, like to give a holistic idea of qualitative plus quantitative in the whole literature review in itself. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes, do we have more people?
Yeah, I think as a protocol, you can all mention your name and also the country from where you're from. So I think that would also kind of
correct.
And that would be great if you do that, please. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sure there should be more people who might have questions in their mind. So go ahead. Though, of course, we will have, again, a question answer session at the end of the session. But right now, whatever I have shared, you can And if you have got some question around that thing, then you can, of course, raise it right now. Okay, so I think now people can ask their questions at the end of the session. So let me respond one by one in the order of the questions which were asked right now. So beginning from the personal input issue. So as I said, the literature review is basically to present the input by others, as in it's basically a collection, you can say, a collection of the arguments or thoughts of others. So what you have as your thoughts or your arguments, that is not part of the literature review. That is what will be the other chapters, you can say, or of course the research project basically. So in literature review, you present the arguments by other authors or who have already worked in that area or on that topic. Whatever you have as your inputs, as your thoughts, as your arguments, you will be presenting it after finishing your literature review chapter in other chapters, and then of course at the end of your dissertation in the form of conclusion chapter or a chapter having suggestions. So that is about personal input. And also I'd like to make it clear that if you have a follow-up question, just write it down and do ask that question or those questions at the end of the session. Okay, thank you. The next was about the time limit thing. And this is very important, which I'll discuss in detail as we proceed. So I think one was about the 6 weeks thing, and another was about the length of the papers. So lengthy papers, you can say articles, journal articles, you can say books, if there are books available. So of course, a book is maybe 300 pages, 500 pages. So both these questions relate to the limitations, okay? And I will discuss that as we proceed further, that how does, when we talk about a research project or when we talk about writing a dissertation or when we talk about writing a paper, what role does different kinds of limitations play, okay? So I will leave it for that, the responses to these two questions. The next, fourth question was, again, the number of articles, as in how many articles should one read to have a sound and substantive literature review in your paper. Again, it's a question about limitations, which I'll discuss later on. So one is time limit, another is, again, the limit, the quantitative limit. The next was question about veracity of a paper. And if I understood it correctly, you were trying to say that how should we as researchers understand the veracity or maybe the truthfulness of the paper, right? So yes, yes. Whether a paper which has been presented or which has been written, or whether a research work which is there, if it's truthful, what's the veracity of it? How should we judge it? How should we judge it that, okay, this is right, we should quote it or we should use it, okay? So I think with respect to veracity, because we work in an environment where it is usually believed that if you have done some work, some research work, of course, your experience counts. And that was the first objective when I talked about objective, that to demonstrate the familiarity with the existing body of knowledge. Though, having said that, of course, you do have your own opinions and people do have their own opinions, their own thoughts, which is channelized by your own positions or your own experiences. Like say, a woman may write something on the role of gender in household works and a man may write something else. Or so it's also about experiences that someone draws in while doing a research, and that does play a role for sure. So it's ultimately up to us as researchers to think and also take into consideration that, okay, fine, we will take this also into consideration, we will take this also in consideration. And then to, go ahead and work on it. Now, I think I missed one thing, which was about objectives. I think one person asked about the objectives that I have outlined. So the objectives that I have outlined to do literature review, of course, these are not some fixed objectives. These are not like, you know, a gospel of truth kind of thing. These are the objectives that I have outlined for myself and just to share with you all. Of course, there could be other objectives as well. There could be other goals of doing literature review as well. It depends on how you frame it. But the purpose of me sharing objectives in those four parts was to make it more clear and to present as much as I can that, okay, these are the goals of doing a literature review. Okay. So I hope I have answered the questions, but then of course the limits, uh, the questions that related to the limitations, I will come to those in later part of the session. So now getting into the third part of the session, now the next thing is what kind of literature we need to review. So there could be literature of different types. Okay, so say, again, I have divided into three. So one could be a theoretical literature. So literature based on theories and conceptions. So say it could be something around gender theory, it could be something around race theory, it could be something about post-colonialism, so post-colonial theory, it could be something around queer theory, you know, socio-legal theory. So theory is basically, of course, the concepts or some ideas in a theoretical form which have been pursued or generated by scholars or philosophers or you can say political scientists or any other researchers in any field. The next kind of literature could be empirical literature. So as I think one person pointed out when he talked about quantitative and qualitative. So empirical is again evidence-based. So mostly, you know, you may come up with certain data. You may come up, and data could be in different forms. So one data could be in numerical form, just like you said, like you may say that, okay, when you look at the household works, as in who does the household work, you find that 80% of people doing household work are women, say, for example. Now, this 80%, and then of course you may say that, okay, 10, 20%, or you can say that, okay, 95% are women, 5% are women, men. So this could be the quantitative data that, okay, in terms of percentage. Now, there could be also data in qualitative forms, where you try to trace the experiences that, okay, what do women who do household work feel about it? And what do they understand that why they are doing it? What's the purpose behind it? And why is this huge gap between men and women doing household work? So these could be empirical literature. Okay, so a research work which has talked about these things could be part of this empirical literature. The next is methodological literature. By methodological literature, I mean, because in every research work, you will find that the author has mentioned that what's the methods or say methodology that the person has adopted while pursuing that research work. And by methodology, of course, it means it could be a mixture of different methods. It could be like, say, if I talk about qualitative methods, it could be based on interviewing, it could be based on observation. So these could be different methods, and methodology is how or what kind of methods you are using and in what ways you are using those methods. And on top of it all, why you want to use this method or these methods in these in this particular way. So the purpose is because different methodologies may lead to different results. Okay, so for example, just take an example again. Say, going back to the same research area or topic, role of gender in household work or higher education. Maybe that if I, being a researcher, thought of tracing the experience of around this question, and if I say interviewed 50 people, and if there are 50 women, like all those people whom I interviewed are women. So the results that will come out of that kind of project, and say in another research work which I am doing or which I did, I again interviewed 50 people, but they were all 50 men. Okay, so this may happen that the results that are coming out of these two projects may vary. That okay, in the first project you may come up with some different result, in the second project you may come up with some different result. Okay, so because different methodologies or different methods may lead to different results, you also need to do the literature review of methodological literature, as in whatever research works have been conducted, what were the methodologies used in that research work by the author or authors. Okay, so these could be the different kinds of literature which you will need to review. Okay, now